morning, everyone. And I just wanted to share a brief word. And for the ones that are on YouTube, welcome to my channel. And everyone else, I hope this will be a blessing to you. I wanted to talk about Jesus for a second. How the significance of Christ is he has so many layers that he offered to the believer. And I want to talk about one area indirectly, the preparation from the natural to the spiritual. Jesus was like the example of what it's supposed to be like the kingdom of heaven. That the spiritual reality to the natural reality. As a believer, we're taught that measure is by faith. And to receive anything of Christ or to have the Spirit of Christ, we have to be of faith. We have to let go of what we see, which is the natural. The natural is up under a different coverage. It's not up under the law of grace. The spirit realm is, and that's what Christ is. So Jesus is offering through faith, through the belief in him, because of what he was able to do over the natural, and he rose in the spirit from the dead, which is spiritual, and he came back to the natural form. And so within that belief, we actually let go of the natural and we go into the spiritual reality. Now, this is where it's kind of hard for an individual to believe in that, because now you're being asked to let go of what you've seen and what you've known. And what you've known has been up under penalties, has been up under a different covering. Let's say, for example, Jesus said, if anyone asks of anything in my name, it shall be given unto them. You should be able to say to a mountain, be thou removed, and it shall be cast aside. Now, before you can move mountains and everything else, of course, there is a measure of faith to be met. You have to grow in faith from one step to another. But that's just the significance of what the point of Christ. He's saying is, what you see is not really reality. However, since you are in that reality, you have to be reborn. You can't go back into your mother's womb for a second time, but spiritually, you could be transformed into a new creature that doesn't go by sight, by what they see. What you see has a covering, and that covering is not of God. It's not a God of grace. It's not a God of forgiveness. There's penalties attached to the natural. And what Jesus was offering away from the natural to the supernatural, where there is no natural. Where there is no penalties. That's why he came and became the sacrificing or the sacrificial lamb to remove the penalty. If you hear about the law represented the covering of the natural. It had nothing to do with you spiritually. It enabled to a certain degree for God to be able to talk to you, but not fully, because man couldn't complete the law. Man couldn't fulfill the requirements of the law. So the grace is given. The grace is given so that we're not required to fulfill the law or fulfill the rules of the physical form. And as long as we are in this body, we have to abide by its rules. If the body is sick, there's rules to it. If the body needs nourishment, there's rules to it. But when you become born again, you're no longer up under those rules. You're up under a different covering, which is the spiritual law. And therefore, if you say, if you have the power of God inside of you, what you say is what you will, because you have God-given. God has given you his spirit. And now you're able to be as he is and to say, and it be. So when we see a supernatural act, you're talking about a person or individual who had went into the spiritual and brought something from there to the natural form. And let's say, for example, if they had stage 4 terminal cancer and they went to the spiritual aspect and they brought over the natural aspect. If you want a visual example, the movie Doctor Strange is implementing that, or basically saying that. You go into the spirit and you rewire the natural versus the natural rewiring your spirit. So this is one of the I would say the discrediting of Christ, because Christ has never been seen naturally. And why man really wants to see him naturally, for identification, for they have something to identify with, man fear what they don't understand. So if it doesn't register with them, or it doesn't where something that where they can relate to, we pretty much shy away. We distance ourselves because we don't understand it. We don't want no problems. We're very defensive. We're fearful in that regard. So Christ has asked us to let go of everything what you think you know to something that you don't know. And it prepares you for the other side. Now, none of us on this side had ever seen the other side unless we were allowed to go on the other side. Now, we hear an uproar about there's a movement going around about being in tune with the universe. You know, for you to be in tune with the universe, you have to let go of the physical law. You have to let go of the physical law. To be in tune with the universe, that's all a different atmosphere. Try to take your body into space. That's a different element. You know, that's completely outside of the body. Now, when you go by the five senses of what you through the natural, you are bound by those rules. But when you become a new creature in Christ, which is hard for some because you have to let go of what you've known and what you've been taught. You have to really be born again, which means a new language, new knowledge, new understanding, new beliefs, new information. Everything is new. It's stripped. And this is the problem with believers of continuing to go from faith to faith, is because we're still holding on to the old ways. And it's hard because we still hold on to the traditions of the body, of what we see and things of that nature. So we can't really be transformed into the image of Christ. So the demonstration what Christ was able to do, we're not able to do because we're still holding on to the old ways. So take a person who's a non-believer at all, they are bound to the natural law. And if they don't submit to that rule, they're going to get hurt. So try to be up under the natural law and use spiritual principles. It's beyond confusing. You become, I want to say, schizophrenic. You could become bipolar. You could become different places. You could become so many delusional. That could be another form. But 9 times out of 10, I want to say, in the natural law, Satan rules. He made man into a natural form. He didn't make man. The Bible says he beguiled, but he basically deceived, or he tricked, or he conned man out of their spiritual connection to God, which is away from the knowledge of the flesh. If you notice in the Bible, it talks about how when Adam when he was disobedient and he partake to the forbidden fruit, he immediately said, he ran and hid and everything else because he became knowledge that he was separated from God. He became unholy. He became knowledgeable of something that he never known was ever possible. So, like when we don't know anything, we run and we hide because we're afraid. So when God was summoning him, he was asking for him, Adam, where are you? Adam said, I hid from you because I was naked. So the first thing God said to him, well, who told you that? Who told you that you were naked? And of course it goes, the story goes to the serpent. Serpent says, this. And, but that's the point, how the enemy of how he became the Lord of the natural. Jesus defied the natural law because he was all spirit. He was formed in a body, but he had the Spirit of God formed in the body, but he had to do the things so we can do the things that would separate us from the natural. He was baptized, whatever. I don't know if he was circumcised. He could have been circumcised, whatever. None of that matters. But he was baptized to separate himself from the consciousness of the attachment to the flesh. He separated. He did, even though he was 100% God. He had God's spirit. He was 100% connected to God. There was no separation. The only time Jesus was separated from the Father was when he was on the cross, when he was all sin. You know, his body was covered in sin. So the Father, there was no connection. God, the Father does not connect with anything that's impure. So that goes into, I can go a different direction with that, where God separated himself from man, which is the significance and importance of Jesus, is to bring us back to the fold with the Father, so we could be in tune to our actual nature. It's not natural. If you look at the body decays, it falls apart. Now, God doesn't want us to be connected to that because that represents death. You know, based upon sin of disobedience. That's accursed. He don't want it to. He'd rather for us not to be attached to that, but to be attached to something more forgiving, more of love, which is the Spirit, which is His Spirit. But if our spirit is connected to our flesh, it's not one and the same with God. So we can go ahead and make a tone of that by accepting Jesus, which is a lot for some because they physically can't see Him. Man's tried to put their stamp of ethnicity or whatever case to make Him identifiable or relatable. But if you're in spirit form, really none of that matters. No, it doesn't matter the texture of the individual. What matters is on the inside. And if anybody ever did anything powerful on this earth, it was based upon the inside. Had nothing to do with the outside or their ethnicity. Or I'm a Philistine, so I'm able to, I'm able to do this. Or I'm Greek, I'm able to do that. It had nothing to do with that texture or the ethnicity. But anyway, I want to sum all that up to say that Jesus offers us the other side. I mean, I don't know anything about any other religion, but I know that He offers the other side, even though we can't physically see Him because He's spirit. But you can spiritually see Him if you receive Him. If that makes any sense to anybody. If you can grab it, grab it. Do it, and have it to leave you as you need to go. I pray that this word be a blessing to someone, and throughout your day, be encouraged, be strengthened, be in peace, be patient, be in love and in forgiveness with yourself and with all men. And your pathway, there will be a light unto your feet and a lamp unto your pathway. You will be blessed.